workshop is called Crafting Hoop Classes, Parties and Workshops. And so hopefully you are here because you are wanting to share hooping. Maybe you already share hooping and you want some creative and practical tips. So give yourself a moment to get set up. Hopefully you can hear my voice and then also see the presentation on the screen. Just before we get started, make sure that you have your space nice and clear so that we can get creative. This is an interactive workshop. So you want to make sure that you've switched off any other distracting devices. I know they're very exciting, but just for a moment, pop them away. If you do have any questions for Hoop Love Coach Training, that will come at the end. Hey, Marty, welcome in. And yes, you will see that there is a chat box on the side. If you want to land any questions there at any time, you can let me know. There will be a Q&A session at the end, but I'll also be calling out for us to share to get interactive because I know that we have hoopers from around the world. Welcome in from Texas and Cape Cod. I am in Melbourne, Australia, down the bottom of the planet at the moment. It's quite chilly, so welcome. Make sure, very important, that you have a journal or something to write on or write with. And I really love to go, I know it seems old school, but pen to paper instead of writing on our screens, just to give our brains a different break and create new pathways, because this is all about creativity and movement, structure and flow. And also, I would love, oh, wow, hi from Idaho and Argentina. Welcome in. I'd also love to know if you want to share, just while you're getting warmed up and bringing your brain and body into this space, what is your reason for coming to this workshop? Are you a hoop teacher? Would you like to be sharing hooping? Are you feeling a little bit flat and uninspired? Are you wanting more ideas or tips? All reasons are totally welcome, and I'm super glad that you're here. While you're getting yourself set up, if you don't know who I am, my name is Deanne Love. Hello, I am the creator of hooplovers.tv and also Hoop Love Coach Training, which is an online teacher training for hoopers and hoop teachers. You're a complete beginner with a micro dream of teaching, Wendy. I love that so much. So in 2007, I was a complete beginner with absolutely hardly any hoop tricks at all. I just had a massive dream and a big excitement. And here I am 17 years later, and I've been teaching hooping all over the planet. And I just had this, I love that micro dream. Honestly, it was just this little like sprinkling. And it can go in so many different directions. So I hope that today's workshop sparks some ideas for you. And it's all about today just daydreaming and watering that little dream and just seeing where it goes. So allow yourself to dream and create today. Doesn't matter if I'm going to ask you lots of different questions, and if you feel like, oh, I don't know the answer, or I don't know how to do that, recognize that. Just let that be there. We don't know how to do lots of things, but we can learn and we can be curious. And so just in today's session, just stay curious to any ideas, even if they feel a little out there or a little strange, or you don't know how to execute them yet. Just idea generation today. And Misty is wanting to teach hooping eventually, getting your bachelor's degree in psychology, and you're interested in art therapy. And I believe this might be it. That's incredible. Awesome, Misty. I'm doing my master's in counseling now. So began as a primary school teacher pre-hooping, and then have been doing movement therapy through hooping for, full-time now for 15 years. And now going into study and adding. So the cool thing is that our lives and our careers are quite modular. We can start adding pieces. So if you're coming to hoop teaching and you're like, but I'm not a hooper, or I'm not a dancer, just recognize those pieces. We're coming from all different modalities, and we get to share joy, we get to share movement, we get to share this somatic therapy. And even if you've got a couple of tricks like I did when I first started teaching hooping, it expands and grows. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of the action of what has been going on for me as a hoop teacher, because a lot of people are like, you're a hoop teacher. What does that even mean? Like what, you just kind of like stand there and people spin a hula hoop around their waist for 90 minutes? Like that, that doesn't make sense. To a lot of people, it doesn't make sense that I've been able to have a full-time career as a hoop teacher for so long in so many different ways. I've taught countless workshops in 20 countries around the planet. I've created hundreds and hundreds of hoop tutorials on YouTube. Maybe that's how we met, online somewhere. I've planned, I've taught, I've marketed over 60 courses, different types of creative courses with a hula hoop, from beginners to well beyond, on learn.hooplovers.tv. I've trained over 1,000 hoop teachers around the planet. I was teaching 3 to 6 regular weekly classes, yes, in real life, pre-internet, to hoopers in Tokyo when I lived in Tokyo, and then in Melbourne. And now I share a lot of classes via Zoom online. I've created a kids hoop program and a teacher training for that, because I was a primary school teacher before all of this hoop stuff came into my life. So there are so many different ways that you can bring yourself into the world of hooping. And I hope that today's workshop sparks some inspiration for you. So your unique offering is what makes you stand out. So you might look at other hoop teachers, or you might look to other inspiration, and that's really beautiful. But today we're going to be looking at what it is that you would like to share and how you can share it. And I'm going to offer a formula. Like, I like to create a structure so that I can then have freedom and creativity. And I'm going to offer a formula that I always use for all of these, for the hundreds of tutorials, for the thousands of classes that I've taught, for all of the workshops that I've created. I have this very similar formula because we want this strong, solid foundation, so then we can be as creative and out there as we like. But we want to create safe and connected and nurturing classes, because people bring their vulnerability, they bring their nerves, they bring their body onto the line when they're trying something new. And so we want to create this really safe space. So some questions, if you're wondering, like, what am I even doing in this workshop? Is this for me? If you're often thinking about sharing hooping, but you're not sure how to structure a safe and supportive class, then today might be a really exciting inspiration for you. And if you worry that you have nothing to offer, so maybe you're like, I don't have many tricks, or I don't really know how to structure a class, or I'm not a hoop teacher. How would I even teach hooping? So if that's you, if that feels a little bit like you, then today's going to be a good one. So grab your journal. We're going to be creating, and remember, today is just brainstorming, body storming. If you need to move around in your seat, or like have a bit of a shake, or maybe put on some music, whatever helps you to start to get the ideas flowing. Because from today's idea generation session, you might, and even if it's a make-believe one, because in the beginning of my hoop teaching, I would sit down and play make-believe. I would imagine, because I wasn't a hoop teacher, I just imagined that I wanted to be. I imagined that I wanted to teach hooping around the planet. I imagined that I would have students and moving their bodies and expressing joy and opening up to moving what they were feeling. That was just a dream, because it was just basically me in a hula hoop in the park at night. And now I've had the pleasure of teaching so many tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of humans. It almost feels like too amazing to say that. So maybe today in our make-believe session, you're going to create a unique hoop workshop. Or maybe you, in your journal, you write out a tutorial series that you'd love to share. Even if you don't know how to do it yet, this is just the seed planting. Maybe it's an online course, a community class, a beginner class, a specialty class, or a community offering. So just keep your mind and your body open and alive to possibilities and dreams in this workshop. Okay, so grabbing your journal, and when I share these questions, just let your body soften into the space that you're in now, feeling your seat connected to wherever you may have landed. And if you need to take a few breaths or orient yourself to the space, taking a little look around you, preparing your body and your breath and your space for dreaming. Because when I share these questions, you get to make it up. If you don't know the answers, you get to dream. You get to use your imagination. So grabbing your pen and simply writing, made up or maybe real, maybe you have some really quite specific answers to these questions. Who is your community? And what are they looking for? What do you think they want? Just allowing yourself to write one word and then another, maybe stringing sentences together, imagining, visioning who your community might be. What do they like? Where are they? And remember, if you don't know the answers, you can imagine, you can dream, you get to pretend. Remember when we were little kids? We just made things up. So just give yourself a moment to dream up your community, your ideal dream. If you are thinking about a class, how many people are in your class? What are they enjoying? Where have they traveled from to visit you? And just one more minute writing words, ideas, symbols, dreams about your community, the humans who might show up to your classes, your sessions, your workshops. Dropping in gently, slowly to your imagination. Because if you don't know the answers right now, you get to make them up. You get to manifest and imagine. Be as creative as you can. And this is a practice, the practice of creativity, of allowing yourself to come up with new ideas, writing them out in your journal, even if they don't seem real just yet. Brainstorm and brain dump. Okay, let's talk about your special sauce. What is your style? What do you like to share? How do you like to share it? What are your strengths and what do you love doing? Give yourself time to write your words onto your paper. What other interests or talents do you have? And what are you good at? This journal entry is all about you. And in module 1 of Hoop Love Coach training, it's all about your special sauce. Because once you can come to embrace who you are, then you can take on the confidence and the creativity that you need to become an empowering hoop teacher. So get to know your style, your strengths, and what you love doing. If you get stuck on this one, it's okay. Continue to write one word and then a sentence, letting writing flow and imagination flow. If you're not sure what you love doing or what your style is or what you're good at, look around your space now. What are the things that surround you? What are the practices that you like to do? And they don't have to be entirely aligned with Hooping. Maybe you like to do a tarot reading each morning. Maybe you enjoy going for a walk. Maybe you're really into books and storytelling. You might like painting or listening to podcasts. You may enjoy bird watching. All of these practices are creativity. What is your style? Maybe you're into fitness or somatics or understanding the psychology of community. This is your special sauce. Give yourself one more minute. Okay, now we get to think about our classes and what it is that we'd like to offer. How does your class help your community? So think about what it is that you might like to share as a solution. Get as specific as you can. What is most helpful about a class that you would like to create? How might someone benefit from your class? And in the free flow of writing this, here's a little hint. Anything that you write in this area, what solution you're offering, and how it helps, this is great for promotion. Because when you need to promote your classes, parties, or workshops, people want to know what they're going to get and why it will benefit them and what solution it might bring. Maybe it's pain relief, maybe it's creative expression, maybe it's a hoop fitness class. You get to dream. What does your class help your community with? How would someone benefit? And just notice any resistance, any blocks. We're doing some excavation of ideas and creativity before we get to creating the class structure. And just noticing if there's any creative blocks, let them be there. Witness the words that come up for you. I don't know, I'm not sure, I've never done this before. That's okay. How exciting that you get to do it now. Okay, so how's everyone feeling? After that little creative brainstorming session, oh, it's a beautiful practice of just letting ideas flow. Feeling great, Wendy. Epic. And so sometimes with that type of, if any of you have been practicing, say, morning pages, if you've moved through the artist way practice, sometimes we're just writing like anything, might not even make sense, but we're just letting it out, just letting it flow, giving ourselves this time to unravel and become unstuck out of our head and into our journal or onto the page. So let's have a little look now at the formula that I always use to create any kind of class, party, or workshop. And here are the three things that I often think of. I want to come up with the concept, and this is how I do it. Of course, you get to do it in any way that you like, but I'm offering this because this has just been the way that I have created over so many years, more than a decade. So I come up with the concept. It's a party for a birthday party, or it's a workshop for a retreat, or it's a beginner's class in my local area. And we'll go a little bit more in depth on each of these three things in a moment. And then I create the structure. So I want to have a framework for whatever. So that's going to be the timing and the pieces that I add in, and I'll show you in a moment. And then I can let it flow. Then I can bring in all of the sweetness, and that's when I start to build my confidence as a teacher. And I play and I practice and I let it become nice and rich and juicy so that I can show up and feel really prepared. And that for me is the real sweet spot where I have a structure and the flow meets that. And that for me is like when I feel, yeah, really confident and courageous and successful. And without these three pieces, I feel like I'm a bit lost. And we want to show up feeling like, yeah, I got this. Even when we're nervous, I still get nervous all the time. Even when we're like, oh, is this the right thing? Is everyone going to love it? Like, we're always going to have those questions and thoughts. I don't think that they ever go away. We just like see them and meet them and like, oh, there you are, my nerves. Thank you. Thank you for showing me that I really care about this stuff. So let's have a little look. So the concept, this is how I work. This is how I like to work. I generally love to come up with a name first. And this might be something really simple. Your class might be called Beginner's Hoop Class. It doesn't have to be like this big, extreme, perfect name. Some people like to just call their class Hoop Flow. Recently, in the last couple of years, I've been sharing a workshop called Embody, because it's more than like hoop tricks, and we're not breaking down hoop tricks. It's more about how we can bring our bodies online creatively. I have workshops or classes that are called 10 tricks for beginners. So you can be very specific with your name. Maybe it's something quite open, hoop choreography, stretching for hoopers, could be anything. And right now, as I'm saying, just throwing out some of these ideas, you might like to be just randomly writing down, like I think my first ever hoop classes were called Beginners and Beyond. I think that's what, if I'm going way back, pretty sure they were called Beginner and Beyond. And that was a beautiful place for me to start because I was also quite a beginner hooper, but I knew I had a passion for teaching. And I certainly didn't know all the tricks. I still don't know all the tricks. Does anyone? There are tens of thousands and people keep making new ones up all the time. If you are actually on that little topic, because that's one of the big questions that I always get, and some of you might be asking that in the Q&A, but a lot of people ask me about how many hoop tricks do you need to know? That's really, every teacher is going to be so different and has their own style. But when I first started teaching, I had a handful of tricks. But you have to remember that if you are teaching a beginner's class, most humans are coming to your class with zero. So what you're really trying to build is creativity and support and a safe space for people to express. And in the Hoop Love Coach training, the second module is the 100 foundational tricks. And most hoopers who come, even if they're beginners, come to the training, it skyrockets their own personal practice because you get to work on those 100 tricks, and then also how to teach them, because hooping and teaching, two different skills, two very different skills. So we're learning the hooping tricks, but we're also learning how to teach them safely and effectively. Okay, so back to the concept. We got to have the concept. We've got to get ready. So let's say we've got the name, and I just love to start with a name because it's like naming a baby. It's like, okay, you have a personality, you have an identity, you have a name, and then I've got this beautiful thing that I want to cherish and I want to grow and I want to support. And then I think about the place or the venue. Where am I going to be teaching this? Where am I going to be sharing this? It's at the local dance studio. It's in the park. It's at the school hall. And that gives me like a place to land it. And in Hoop Love Coach training, we talk about like how to get the venues and hiring and all of that kind of stuff. But for today, that's like a whole workshop in itself. So, and then I think about the time. So Tuesday nights at 7:30, or Saturday afternoons, or once a month on a Sunday. So we're thinking about how we can plant the seeds. What is it called? Where is it going to be? What time will it be? And for now, you can just be making this up. Like this may be a manifesting exercise for you. In your journal right now, you might be writing, I am going to teach a beginner's hoop class at the St. Kilda Church at 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Now you want to think about the theme or the energy or the vibe. And for this, you might want to write 1 or 2 sentences about what it is. Let's just say if there was a classified like on the internet or a local newspaper or a poster, and they were asking about your class, how would you describe it? What is it? Remember, you get to make it up right now. Or maybe if you're actually very close to sharing a class or you're a little bit stuck, this might be a great way for you to workshop how you're going to promote your class. What skills will people learn? What ideas will you be sharing? What will be the theme? And for some people, they're really into thematics. So they're like, it's going to be I don't know, what's a theme? Winter. It's also a season, I get it. But so the theme is winter. I don't know. I used to be a primary school teacher, so I remember big themes like under the sea and little creatures and, seasonal. So honestly, it's your offering, it's your creativity. And because you're connected with your community and you've been thinking about what your special sauce is and the solutions that you're offering, that's going to be sparking some ideas for the theme, the skills. What are you sharing? So this is the conceptual phase. Again, all this time you could just be dumping out and allow yourself, like maybe you're just writing words or drawing symbols or doodling even, just let it keep flowing. If you get stuck, write another word. If you get stuck, write, I don't know. But I think that I would love to. The theme of my class will be, I would love to share the skills of just let it flow, let it flow. It's like hooping, it's like movement. Like we've got to keep warming up, and then ideas start to germinate. Okay, so here's the teaching structure. This is the second part of the formula. So you've got your name, let's say, and it's okay if you're stuck on the name. Brainstorm, write down lots of different names. Like when I came up with the name Hoop Lovers, which is stuck for this whole time, I had written down so many different names. Like I think I was Hoop Fusion and Hoop. There was so many different things that were floating around. And then I just kept writing down. And then I one day started to draw the Hoop Lovers kind of logo. I'm not great at drawing. I'm not a visual artist in that respect, but we can all use a pen on a piece of paper and just start to like vision out what we think. And then a friend of mine turned it into a logo and it became what it is today. And it was all just from like just this creative writing flow. Creative, just let it flow. So the structure. So let's just say, even if it's make believe, you had the name, where it's going to be, the time, and what you're going to teach. And now you want to structure that class or that party or that workshop, whatever it's going to be. And also, just to let you know, again, because this is just a short workshop, in Hoop Love Coach Training, we look at what is the difference between a class, a party, and a workshop, and how you can share those, because they can be quite unique. So a class is going to often be quite structured around teaching skills. A party, I used to share so many hoop parties. They could be for wedding events or birthdays or celebrations or different kind of community celebrations, and it's more of a party, and I like to do a little choreo that everyone can do. And a workshop is often quite, for me anyway, is very tailored to quite a niche and specific style. Again, that is just my way. So a structure for a class for me, I have a warm-up, I have skills, so skills that I'm going to teach. And let's say for beginners, I pick like 3 or 4 tricks that we're going to learn in that class. And so it might be like, we're going to learn to spin on the waist, we're going to learn to spin on our hand, we're going to learn to do a weave, and we're going to learn how to do an isolation. Maybe that's a lot for one beginner class, but that's okay. And then any activities, like that might be a little game that I want to share, or maybe it's like sequencing some tricks together. So I'm like, what's kind of going to be the juicy, meaty part of my class? And then playtime. I always have playtime in every single thing that I share, whether it is a class about learning tricks as a beginner and getting really solid, or it's a party and it's a community celebration, or it's a workshop. I always give playtime. And playtime for me is, or for the class or the learning, is music is on, my mouth is shut, I step away, and I allow the students' bodies to remember what they remember, to celebrate what they celebrate, to move how they want to move. It's just playtime. It's really important integration. And then a cool down. Often that might be a stretch. And a cool down is really important because it takes us, it's a transitional space from the excitement, the energy, the nerves of a class or a party or a workshop. And then after the playtime integration, ready to go back out into the world, back out to drive away off to the next part of life. So it's a really important piece. Sometimes we can get so rushed as teachers. We're like, oh, I don't have time for a cool down. It's a great way to come together, to reconnect. So maybe as I have been sharing this structure, you've been writing down some ideas. What would you do for a warm-up? And again, I know I keep referring back to Hoop Love Coach Training, but in the training, I give you specific detailed outline class plans for already done for you, for what you would include each week. If let's say you did an 8-week beginners course, maybe that's something that you want to do. What you would do for a warm up and what skills you would share, and then what activities and playtime and cool down for each class. But for now, we're just brainstorming. We're just coming up with ideas. How would you do a warm up? Maybe what songs would you use? Have you got a nice, engaging, exciting, cool track that you've been warming up with? Maybe that's something that you'd like to share if you were to be teaching. What skills? Maybe you could pick 5 tricks that you would love to share. And perhaps then you do a little, let's say, choreography. I know for some people choreography is a big word, but let's say you do a sequence where you put 5 tricks together with a little pizzazz. Maybe it's to a song that you love. And then you give everyone playtime and see if they can remember. Or maybe you give the 5 trick sequence and then you say to your students, mix it up, make it into your own style and see what they come up with. And then you have a cool down. Let any ideas that are sparked come through. And then we go into flow. Essential. Here are the pieces for me that allow flow. Flow is about feeling freedom and feeling confident. And so for me, they are having a playlist that sets the tone and also is a little bit of a timekeeper. I know, and I've done some other workshops on this about how to create playlists for classes. But it helps to go through the class and be like, when this song's on, I know that it's time to do the playtime. Or when this song's on, I know that we're getting close to the end of the skill section. So maybe you want to either write down some songs that you're like, oh, I would definitely use that song. Also, another thing that is essential for me to feel flow or for teachers to feel flow is planning, that you have a class plan, that you know what you're going to be teaching. Yes, you might be someone who has a lot of tricks and you have a lot of knowledge, but if you're not able to create that and put that into a structure that holds a safe container for your students, then you're simply an amazing hooper. And congratulations, I love that for you. It's very beautiful. But as a teacher, we want to have a safe and confident and creative and clearly planned structure. But also, you don't want it to take over. So you're like, oh, I've got to do everything perfectly. And planning and practice and preparation will mean that you have the flow. So maybe once you have your playlist and you've created the structure and you've planned it all out, you practice in front of the mirror, in front of your cat, in the backyard, with a friend, so that you feel nice and confident when you do show up for your community. So take a few moments just now to brain dump any ideas, what's coming through, what's coming up, and maybe you've already been doing that. Any images, anything, land them on the page for yourself right now. And so just a little recap about creating and sharing your classes, parties, and workshops. We looked at who is your community? Where are they? What is your special sauce? What solutions are you offering? And then the formula, we come up with the concept, we build the structure, and then we get to drop into flow. Most importantly, then it's time to take action and just try it out. Have a go. That's the way that we learn and we grow. And then, of course, we go into sharing, promoting that offer. So I hope that you found this very quick for quite a big flowing creative process, this very quick look at the formula that I always like to use. And of course, you can go back over this workshop at any time and pull those pieces apart and go into each of the like the planning, the structure, the flow pieces. And if there's anything from this little brainstorming session that you would like to share, you can absolutely do so in the chat box. If you have any questions about any of it, please let me know. Or maybe you have questions about Hoop Love Coach training. Or maybe there's something that you're like, I just don't quite understand how I would. You can absolutely land that question with me now. Now's a great time to do that. I am going to be here for, well, as long as needed. If any questions come through, even if there's other things about hoop teaching that's kind of niggling, you're like, I've always wondered, or this is my situation and I'm not quite sure, you can absolutely land that. And while you're thinking of those questions or landing them in the chat box, for anyone who is curious about Hoop Love coaching, because I know that a few of you have have jumped on here because you have questions. Just to let you know, yes, it is an online training. There's community support. You can stream or download 24/7, so you don't have to get worried about like time being up at 3 a.m. or any timelines. You can learn from an expert. That's me. Yes, you get a certificate for completion and you get to learn at your own pace, but it is structured in that each week you will have access to new material and you'll have guidance from me. Yes. Hello. Okay, so questions coming through. After July, when will your next training be? Great question, Wendy. Potentially in September, and if not, in February of next year. It just depends on who's reaching out and how many humans we have who want to become hoop teachers. I'm a broke college student, so can't afford the teacher training this time around. Absolutely understand. And I hope that this has been helpful. And this is why I like to do these, because I want to make this kind of like moving towards hoop teaching accessible for everyone. And so I like to do these workshops as well as the teacher training each time. Do you know when the next one will be? Yes. So either September or Feb next year. And are there any ever deals or discounts on it? That is such a great question. It's something that I get quite every now and then. And I want to say that I always make sure that Hoop Love Coach training is at its absolute cheapest at $397 Australian dollars. So I don't know what that is in US, probably the Australian to US conversion rate. Our dollar is so terrible at the moment. So maybe it's like 200 and something US dollars. Yeah, I have kept it at that price for the entire time, so that it is accessible. And I totally believe in the value that the training offers. And I think that you can make back that money. I like to think that you can make back that money in one class. Of course, it depends on how many humans come to your class. So that's why I keep it at that price. Do you have resources on how hula hooping opens up chi shakti from a healing perspective? No, I don't. I don't personally, but I believe that there might be some hoopers that have worked in those healing arts. I'd like to know, once you have all this plan, how do you present your project, like in a club or in a space to give classes there? Oh, yeah, that's a great one. So, promotion. I do love marketing as well. And yes, I have a marketing degree. That was actually my first degree, which is so bizarre. I could never have imagined when I first got out of school and went to university and did a marketing degree that I would be using it to be a hula hoop teacher. Never, never, never. I actually thought way back then that I would be like teaching, no, not teaching, that I would be working in corporate. And no, turns out I use the marketing degree to share with hooping. So I have done other workshops on how to promo. But one little thing that I would really like to say about marketing or sharing, and I think that you said that how to present your project, it really is that. It's about communication. It's about saying, hello, I have this offering. And like from today, maybe you went through and like you made up some ideas about what the solutions are and what it is that you're going to teach and how maybe what we didn't really talk about today was like pricing and how much you want to charge. But that's a whole other workshop, because sometimes you're going to charge per student, sometimes you're going to charge, like the club might just pay you a fee. So pricing is different based on so many different things. But it's really, marketing is communication. Marketing is reaching out and saying, hello, I have a hoop class, or I would like to do a hoop party, and negotiating and sharing. So I hope that answers your question in like 1 minute. How how to promote is so much more expansive than that. And there are lots of different strategies, but essentially reaching out. And so if, let's just say, I know that you said in a club or a space to give classes, let's just say you reach out via email, which is just one way. And you email the club or you email the venue and you say, hello, I'm a hoop teacher and I would like to teach a class at your club. And they get back to you and say, okay, send us more details. You need to be ready with the details that you have. And so for some of you, actually, a really great thing now, if you don't use it already, is Canva, canva.com, Canva. And I'll write that in the chat box. And what this allows you to do is to maybe make up like a 1-page or a 2-page profile of what it is that you offer. And so there might be a picture of you, and there might be like what your class is, the benefits of hooping or the benefits of your class. And then you could just send that back to them. So it's like, I'm prepared, I'm ready, I've like brainstormed this. And then they're like, oh, wow, okay, this person has their structure, they've got their concept, they're ready, they're a professional. And so it also gives them a chance, like if they're not the promoter or the booker, like if you've reached out to someone and they're not the person that does the booking for the venue or whatever, they'll be able to send that to the person who is. So it's like just being prepared and ready. And particularly like maybe just a 1-page is a great way to promote yourself in an easeful way. So you can do it like to multiple venues that same way. Will there be future opportunities to become lead coaches, that is pro coach who can be coach trainers? Ooh, that's exciting. Like train the trainer. It's really interesting. I actually love this question. So when I first started, so there's lots of different ways and structures and models for education. And this we're presented with so many on the planet in the fitness industry and like in many industries across all in tertiary education and education. And I am obsessed. if it's not apparent, I'm obsessed with how teachers teach and train. And with structures and systems. And there's lots of like governing bodies that we can be aligned to and pay money and do all of these things. And I have very very consciously tried to stay with the most simple and easeful model. And that is delivering and offering my expertise from over a decade, maybe, well, 2 decades in my teaching as well, not just with hooping, and offer that in a one-time, no licensing, no extra, like no franchising, no complex systems or webs, because I want to offer it in this really pure form. So it's been a conscious decision not to grow and expand outside of that. But I love that inquiry. You are a pro master trainer teacher. Okay, when reaching out to them, do we need some kind of proof or identification that we are actually teaching hooping? Some places might ask you, yes. Now, this is the beauty. This is the absolute beauty of living in a world that has different spaces and structures. And you can be an independent teacher, you can be a contract teacher, you can be, some people start teaching for gyms, or different systems that require different qualifications. But many places are excited to have you on as a hoop teacher. They will not ask for proof of identification. I'm not quite sure what that is. I guess like I can give you from my own example. I have taught actually, I think I wrote a blog once that says the 100 places I have taught hooping. Was it 100? That's a lot. It's true. There are so many places. The one, what's coming to mind is like proof or identification, the one system or structure in our society that may ask for like extra, like fitness, if you're thinking like fitness training, is a gymnasium. Now, I know like there are Hoop Love coaches who are teaching at YMCAs and similar structures that are not required to have, and depending on the country that you live in, I do know that North America and Australia have some pretty regulated fitness fitness structures, which means that they require certifications like we call it in Australia Cert 4. So you need to have a Cert 4 to teach in some gyms. Now, this is the exciting line of inquiry that you can go on, is that you are looking for spaces where you can teach in your own style and your own way. Some Hoop Love coaches or some hoop teachers they do like to go on and do so many different other modalities of education. And that's a personal preference. I have done a Cert 4 in fitness, and this is my absolute personal journey. I haven't used any of it. Don't tell anyone. Apart from obviously like body safety, but it just wasn't aligned creatively with the type of hooping that I share. But I'm curious. I love to know what is on offer and what's important. Will they ask for proof of identity? I want to go back to your question. Maybe. I've never, what I'm saying is in my personal journey of teaching in all of these places, I've never encountered a space that hasn't wanted me to teach if they had the space or if they weren't busy or if, yeah, they've always been like, even in the early, so to give you an introduction into how I started hoop teaching, I did it very independently. I worked on the concept, I created the structure, I'd been hooping and understanding how to create a hoop class, and I practiced. I came up with something that I thought was a safe and fun creative container, and then I booked a venue myself. So that was my first early days. I booked a venue that was a space that I had I sent it out to some friends and work colleagues, and they came to this space, and I shared maybe a 4-week class for beginners. I would have my brain. It's going back 15 years now. I should know. I should remember my first classes. And then that grew into once I felt a little bit confident with that, I shared, and I didn't have Canva back in the day, but it was like that one page, like, here's what I offer. And I shared that with some gyms. I was living in Tokyo, Japan, and they hired me on a weekly basis to share, to teach classes there. And at no point did they ask for proof or identification. However, you know what they did want? They wanted a first aid certificate. So I had to do my first aid certificate. That's really important. Most spaces, and they also wanted public liability, which you can now thankfully get for much cheaper, because back in the day it was really expensive. But now there are so many different movement artists and modalities of movement and teaching that public liability insurance, which everyone needs, like even if you had a market stall or if you were doing massage or whatever it is that you're doing, you generally need it in most countries these days. So that's something that you probably would need to teach in any venue, whether it was a nightclub or a church or a gym or a school or a backyard. So yeah, I'm wondering if I'm missing anything there. Anyway, more questions. That was a lot. Going back to like my first days of teaching. And I guess essentially then what I was saying was then I started like looking for other places that would want me to teach. And sometimes it was totally independent, like I was just booking the venue. And then other times It was like, yeah, a gym or a school or somewhere that had their own student base. And that's another way to promote your classes, like like yoga spaces or pole dance class spaces that already have students. So you don't have to be like looking for your own. So very quickly about the Hoop Love Coach training. Yes, this is another question that I get all the time. Is there a payment plan? You can do a one-off payment that's $397 Australian dollars, or you can do 2 payments or 3 payments, whatever feels best for you. Misty said, sorry, I didn't ask that well. If someone comes into a business and says that they are from the electric company to fix something, you are told, be sure they, oh, I see. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Like a safety. But your answer covered all that I was wondering. I hope so. Sorry, I didn't answer that very correctly. Yeah, I've never had that happen to me. So that is it's a really interesting question. In terms of I'm thinking of any time where I would have to have shown proof of who I am, but definitely what is really important, and I hope that this comes through in everything that I've shared, is that we're trying to set up a safe container for our students, for ourselves as teachers, so of course for our community as well. And so what might happen so whether you decide to teach, you're booking your own private venue, or you have been hired to teach by someone else, there'll be some kind of induction that you go through, whether that's they're checking, like let's say they want some kind of identification from you, or yeah, again, they might want a first aid certificate, or they might want, yeah, your public liability. And so there's some kind of safety onboarding there. And each venue will have their own requirements. But if you're feeling nervous about that, it's really a step-by-step process, and every venue or every club or every gym will have their own unique way, and they'll step you through it because they've done this so many times. So yeah, I hope that answers. Yes, and also, yeah, if you take, so many of the Hoop Love coaches, then to help them feel like they're supported and more confident, they use their certificate from the Hoop Love Coach training to add to that one page. So they're like, I've done this training, I'm committed to this. And I know, like, when you first start teaching, you can feel like, oh, who am I to, like, this imposter syndrome comes in, like, who am I to teach? I've never taught a class before. So that first class or a couple of classes can feel like, uh-oh, maybe people will find out that, I don't know what I'm doing. It's a big hurdle to overcome. And I really want to support you through that because it's a super, super common. And we all face that where we're like, I'm just new to this. And this happens, look, this happens in every job, whether we're teaching or we're creating, like if you can think of any job that you might be participating in right now, I'm sure when you first started, you had that, like, maybe you still have it. Like maybe if you have to work with clients or you turn up and you're like, who am I to be teaching this? Who am I to be sharing this? So that's a really common space to be moving through. Yes. Okay. Well, oh my goodness, look at you, amazing humans. We are at 1 hour, which I know is a lot. So I want to thank you for your focus and your generosity of time. And I hope that today has been very supportive for you. And even if you've sparked one idea, I'd love to hear it if you want to share it in the chat box just as we wrap up. If there's one spark that came through today that feels like it's something exciting or positive or useful, land it with us. Thank you, Wendy. Oh, I'm glad to hear that the workshop was valuable for you. and that you're doing the 28 days. Yes, the 28-day starter pack is a great, if you're just a new hooper, by the way, and you jumped into this workshop and you're like, oh my goodness, I've just started hooping and you're asking me to teach it. It's okay. It might be a vision for the future. Thanks for hanging in there. And the 28-day starter pack is a great way to start. And you might even use stuff from my 28-day starter pack in your classes someday. So that's exciting. Thanks, Misty. I'm glad that we're going to be working together. Aw, Jenny getting back into teaching. You've been learning for a decade. We've been hooping together for a decade. Oh, it's so, see, this is this is like, if you're feeling, oh no, I'm so nervous and I don't know what I'm, just keep on keeping on. If I let all of that stuff hold me back in the day when I was like, I don't know how I'm going to turn this dream into a reality of sharing this beautiful, incredible art with these absolutely spectacular humans. I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't have got a chance to share this and get to know you. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I'm loving these big red love hearts. If it feels good for you, I'm going to see you in Hoop Love Coach training or somewhere else. Let's just remember, keep moving, keep flowing, keep hooping in any capacity, in any way. And if it feels good for you, share that with others as often and as joyfully as you can. It's so worth it. Thank you so much. I don't know if you could tell, but this week I have been deathly ill with a flu. And all I've been thinking about, like in bed all week, is that I would get to come to this workshop and share this with you. And it's meant so much. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope that my voice hasn't been too croaky for you. We got through it. Yay. Oh, thank you so much. Big love to you all. Courage on repeat. Show up. Little steps. You can do it. You are supported and you are enough. Mwah. Big love. See you soon. Bye.